Hello friends, welcome again to Logic Heap. Today we are going to discuss theory of arrays and in next tutorial we'll check its implementation. Before starting arrays, we need to understand what are ADTs. It is short of abstract data types. So as per name of this term, specifying only the data structure and its behavior without any implementation is ADT. Okay, so for example, if we talk about ADT of array, what it says, array is a data structure which is an ordered collection of elements accessible by an index. Okay, so you'll not find anything written here about how to write code for arrays, how to implement it. It is up to the different languages or the user how do they want to implement it. This is just the specification. In arrays ADT, I would like to emphasize on two words. Right here, we have used two words. First is ordered collection, and second is elements accessible by an index. Let's talk about the first one, ordered collection. What do you mean by an ordered collection? It means it maintains the insertion order. The order in which you have inserted the elements, they should remain in the same order. And remember, ordered does not mean that it is sorted. It just means that it maintains the insertion order. So suppose if some element is inserted at fifth position, it should be at that position only. And, the, and then the second point, that element should be accessible by an index. I would like to explain it with the help of an example. And this example will also help you to understand why we need arrays. Suppose you need to store marks of 10 students, mathematics marks. One way is to create 10 variables for it, right? A, B, C, D, up to 10. But the problem with this approach is there's no logical grouping. See, the data is related. All the data is about mathematics marks of student. But there's no logical grouping. These are just separate 10 variables. A better way of doing this is having an array. So here comes the array. When you need to store a collection, we need an array. What would be the size of it? 10. So remember, in Python, indexing starts from 0. 0 up till 9, right? Now let's name our array as A. To access the first student's marks, what would you write? You'll write A0. You can see here, accessing any element by index is A I minus 1, right? Because indexing is starting from 0 here. To access marks of the fifth student, what would you write? A4. So I hope now the point of accessing an element by index is clear. So both the points, it should be an ordered collection, which means it should maintain the insertion order. And second point is it should be accessible by the index. See, ADT doesn't talk about implementation, and now you are clear with the term of arrays ADT. But when you need to code, you need to have its implementation either by the language or by yourself. So for understanding the implementation, first we need to understand the low-level computer architecture. Whenever a program runs, it is first loaded in primary memory. This primary memory consists of sequence of bytes of information, right? It is going to hold lot of information. But how to know where any particular information is stored, right? Like multiple programs are running, multiple applications are running, but how do we know that our particular information that I need is stored at that particular place? How do we solve this problem in real world? We use the addressing. Similar mechanism we need to apply here. We should have a memory address corresponding to each byte. So every byte has a unique address. Now understand this, since each byte has an address, it becomes easy to access any byte as per requirement. Thus, primary memory is called random access memory because randomly you can access any part of your memory. So just a quick question, what would be the time complexity of accessing any byte? So it is order of 1. When we say the complexity is order of 1, when it is going to take constant amount of time whatever the input size be. So here just you need the address, right? Whatever the size of the memory, whatever it is, you just need to have the address and you'll be able to access that byte quickly. So that's why its time complexity is order of 1. Now when we create variables in our program, these variables are also mapped to some bytes in RAM, and this mapping is tracked. Okay, suppose you create a variable A. For your understanding, this is A, but in terms how we are dealing with it in computer memory, in RAM, we are simply giving it a address. So there's a mapping that this variable is located at this address. Okay, now let's directly jump to implementation of arrays. There are two possible ways we can think of. Let's study the first way, which is very common to store arrays in memory. So how do we do this? Suppose we need to store each character of logic heap in an array. Each character, if you see, takes 2 bytes. It is stored in the form of Unicode. When you are implementing, just think of two things which array ADT demands. What is the first one? It says it should be an ordered collection. So the first, if logic heap we are trying to insert, we want to maintain the order here. L should be the first element, O should be the second element, and so on. So ordered collection, order should not be changed. Secondly, it should be accessible by an index. It means A0 is L, A1 if I'll try to access should give me O, A2 is G, and so on. So one possible way is to allocate contiguous space in your primary memory and give 2 bytes to each. Suppose the base address is 25,000. Okay, you will store L there. It will take 2 bytes. Then the next one is O, which you'll store at 25002. Now again, G, if you want to store it, it will get stored at 25004. So see, you are taking a contiguous space in memory. The benefit of it is if you want to access the ith index, okay, AI, what would be the formula to calculate it? You'll simply check the base address, which is 25,000, and then you'll do some mathematics as an element size into I. Correct. So base address plus element size, which is 2 here, into index. Suppose you, okay, so let's use this formula. Suppose you want to access um, C. C here. Okay, so it's the fifth element. It means its index is going to be 4. So A4 is equals to 25,000, which is the base address, plus element size. So what is the element size each time? It's 2 bytes. 2 bytes into I. I is 4. So 2 into 4 is 8. So 25008. So indexing has become very easy when you are storing it in contiguous space in your memory. When when we use this approach, to access an element, the approach is very simple. If you want to access G in array, we simply write A2 because it's going to be the third element. We will simply write A2 and we'll get its value. So we are clear that we can access any element with the help of an index. Now if you want to insert an element, if you want to insert at the end of your array, no issues. There must be space. If there's space, you will be able to insert it. If you want to insert something in between your array, so see here, the second array that I'm showing you, here I want to insert another I after the I, right? So it's double I. What I'll have to do is I'll have to shift all the elements after I to the right by one space, and then I'll have to fit I here. Correct? So to insert any element in between, you need to shift all the elements which are at the right by one space and then you'll be able to insert this new element. Similarly, if you want to delete something, right? If you want to delete this C character, what you'll do here, you'll shift all the elements to the left. Do think about the time complexities of each operation and mention in the comment section what do you think would be the time complexities. Because in the next tutorial we'll be discussing its implementation and there we'll be seeing the time complexities as well. Now there's one more way to implement arrays. Such arrays are called referential arrays. But wait, why the second way to implement? Is first one not enough? Is it not good? So it depends upon the requirement. Suppose you want to store elements of different types, like these are heterogeneous items. What does that mean? It means that items would be of variable length. Suppose you want to store an integer and a string or a floating point number together. Then for indexing, you'll not be able to use the formula that you were using. What was that formula? You can see here base address plus element size into I. You'll not get the value at that particular point. So how you'll implement your indexing here? That's the problem statement. So one example is suppose I want to store all the names of subscribers of Logic Heap. Now these names could be of variable length. One way could be uh, to s- to have the maximum bytes that a name can take, that even a longest name can take, and give the same amount of size to all the elements. But this way, this is going to waste a lot of memory because some names would be very short. Then you are wasting the memory for in each element. Right. So this approach you can apply, but this is going to waste a lot of memory. Now, what is the other way? This even in Python, your list or tuple uses. Okay, list or tuple is something which we are going to use extensively. So we should know what do they do. So now here also we are going to take contiguous array. This is also the same, but instead of the name written here, name in this space, we simply mention the address where this name is stored. So this, suppose this the name of the array is A, then A0 is going to contain the reference of William, where this William is stored. William is stored somewhere else in memory. A1 is going to store the reference of Tina, which is stored somewhere else in your memory, and so on. So instead of having the elements directly here, you are giving the reference slash address here. So this is the second approach. Now, see, these are the points to note when you are using referential and compact arrays. Compact arrays are the first that we discussed. So, memory usage is very lower in case of compact arrays because you're not wasting space to store the addresses and then these addresses in turn pointing to the element. You are simply storing your data itself in the array. So, less amount of memory is getting consumed. So this is one difference. And secondly, when you store the data consecutively, it leads to the faster performance. So you are using the memory sequentially, thus it leads to the faster performance. Next, one more thing that you should know is about the dynamic arrays. So see, I created one array and I stored logic in it. Logic. Okay, so every character is going to take 2 bytes. Sequentially, you have created a compact array. Now, what if I need to add data further? I want to insert more elements, and in memory, if you can see to both the sides, it is occupied by something else. So you cannot use this space, but we want to add data further. What we can do? So approach one is, what you can do is whenever you create an array, create a slightly bigger array than what user has requested for, so that further insertion doesn't create any problem. But if user is continuously going to do more insertions, then at some point of time memory is going to get exhausted there. The second approach is, if you are enough of your space, you don't have enough space after that, create a larger array. As soon as you are running out of space, create a larger array and copy elements of your existing small array, and this small array then can be deleted. So if you want to store heap after it, right, logic heap, so what you'll do is you'll create another array of bigger size and you'll copy the already existing contents, which is logic, into the bigger array, and then this small array can be deleted. So these are called dynamic arrays, which you create when you're running out of space. At runtime only you are going to create a bigger array. So that's why these are called dynamic.
Thank you so much, guys, for tuning into Logic Heap. If you like this video, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.